That was the greatest Muhammad Ali, and sadly he's passed away, but before he did, he had tremors, all these things going on coming from brain injuries. They say from boxing, more than likely. Let's look at now the comparison of American football and boxing. First up, American football. Watch this for a hit.
Rogers is the edge of the middle. Little screen.
If you think a gum shield or a mouth guard just being tossed aside out of somebody's mouth is a bad hit, watch what happens here in the ring. Watch again how Patrick Day, the boxer, gets hit so badly and definite brain injury occurs. You begin to notice that even though they get a brain injury or concussion, their bodies lie motionless when hit.
In Cincinnati, after the play fake, it's a screen, but Joe Mixon showing his patience, a la Le'Veon Bell, and now he's slow to get up at the 30-yard line.
Things can get so bad, as did with Pritchard Colin, boxer, that there is really little if any hope.
His corner claimed that Colin was incoherent and experiencing dizziness. After the fight, he was vomiting and taken to the hospital where he was diagnosed.
In these ball clips, you notice how head-to-head is a serious collision.
The rules in terms of head-to-head hits. On defense, you can't use your head or your helmet as a weapon. If you're a running back, you also can't leap with your head to hit other players'
Even
heads.
though head-to-head can be absolutely tragic, you'll notice here how fist-to-head can just instantly stop a person in the tracks. But it's not just head-to-head or fist-to-head. The actual concussion or brain injury can occur when there is some form of contact away from them too. Usually when somebody gets hit, then they start to feel completely out of it, completely as if they don't know where they are, and their body just follows suit with what their brain is telling them. Even off the ball players need to be very aware. Watch here in the bottom left corner of the clip where McCoy gets hit completely away from the action. So what actually happens, not just in the short term when people lose their ability to stand or walk or know where they are, in the long term, Dr. Anne McKee explains it all here.
This is of individuals who all played football. This is a player that died in his late 40s. He only played high school football. This is a suicide. And this is a player who died in his 80s.
That is quite a sight. Dr. Daniel Perlnow actually explains that concussions are one thing, but then there's another thing called CTE.
CTE stands for chronic traumatic encephalopathy. Athletes who participate in contact sports. The first descriptions were in boxers, and more recently has been widely discussed in the media, football players, professional football players, but this is expanded into hockey players, rugby players, soccer players, other examples that we've been seeing.
Lots and lots of people think it's just professional boxers or American footballers that when they get hit, they're just going to have either concussion or CTE or a long-term problem. But it's not just the professional players. Watch how Dr. Kevin Beniak explains how this could happen to me or you.
To look at the brains of individuals who maybe didn't play sports at the professional level, we found that roughly a third of our athletes had CTE pathology in their brains. The takeaway is just that it's a more common finding than one might think.
When a person gets hit in whatever way they do in boxing or American football, it can end a person's life, leave them crippled, or leave them just emotionally confused. I can recall when this fight happened between Clean and Nigel Benn in the 1990s. Even though just recently retired at the time, Tom Crabtree from the NFL decided to put his voice to trying to have safety within the game of football.
And you're kind of looked down on if you miss time with a concussion or if you complain about it. If you sit and watch games this weekend, whether it's college or NFL, you'll see a guy, make a big hit or take a hit himself and walk to the wrong huddle or stumble to the sidelines, and he'll be in that game at some point later in the game.
At the outset of this video, I showed the greatest Mohammad Ali, and his butterfly ways couldn't even dodge punches because he ended up with some form of brain injury, Parkinson's in fact, where perhaps a lot of the hits were cumulative and his style and grace was gone at his older age. The greatest himself went from style to shake, and Parkinson's took hold before death. Watch Muhammad Ali from when he was young to that aging cripple he became.
Ali was in the public eye for decades. Former Inside Edition correspondent April Woodard met him when she was just 3 years old. She showed him the photo when she interviewed him in 2002. His hand shook when he lit the torch at the Atlanta Olympics in 1996. Ali will be buried in his hometown of Louisville, Kentucky.
So high-impact sports such as boxing and American football, should young people play them? Should they be involved at all with this impact going on? Dr. Bennett Omelu explains, no, they shouldn't. Sometimes players and boxers get so badly injured they can't even explain the pain or the grief they're going through. But Larry Johnson was able to do that at only 38 years of age.
Light headaches.
Every now and again, and my anxiety levels is off the chart. Sometimes I can't be in places for long, so I have to retreat back to my own place because the anxiety makes my heart beat faster.
Johnson is convinced his many symptoms, including erratic mood swings and forgetfulness, all point to CTE.
Another young man, a footballer, and hugely strong, as you can see through this particular video, Brian Price, and yet he didn't realise what he was doing when he went through that door.
Husband to track star Candice Davis Price, and father to daughter Gianna with a baby boy on the way. Price's wife Candace doesn't want to see this video of her husband plowing through the glass doors, but she thinks if he had been anywhere other than Washtenaw County, Brian would have been shot dead.
This isn't like a torn ACL or a broken arm and we're going to physical therapy. We're dealing with not even breast cancer and survivors. We're dealing with something that they don't even know enough about to educate.
It seems though there's a balance to it. There has to be a balance to sport. We all love sport after all. We wouldn't be watching this video, I wouldn't be creating this video. And even though I've seen wonderful boxing bouts, Sugar Ray Leonard explains how, well, boxing is good in other ways too.
Unfortunately, everyone can't play golf or tennis and things that require money. Just don't have that. Boxing for me kept me off the streets, kept me away from drugs for as long as it could. My life has been blessed because of boxing. Boxing allowed me to buy my parents their first home. Think about something impactful. It allowed me to help my family.
The stylish and English and quite unique Chris Eubank explains why boxing just needs to stay as it is.
But to strike, there's no malice, there's no anger involved. It's controlled. It's a craft. It's an art.
I suppose boxing can defend itself because there's no general head-to-head action, unlike American football where it can be extremely dangerous.
He's considered an defenseless receiver, and Chancellor hits him helmet to helmet. You can't strike the receiver above the neck.
You can begin to see it from the medic's point of view that this kind of contact is quite unsophisticated. So even though we love sport and there's great entertainment in that aggression coming together, watch how Stephen Lawries explains exactly what's going on.
A real brain. This is how yours look like. Let's look at the boxer's brain. Okay, again, don't have to show which is the boxer's brain. This is an athlete who had a career. Years later, you see the consequences.
Professor David Sharp shows excellent footage here of what actually happens to the brain in that it wobbles like jelly in a bowl.
That can produce direct injury by the brain hitting the inside of the skull. A direct impact can also stretch and rip tiny microscopic wires in the brain called axons.
Still, boxing fans love to see that one-to-one battle, and eventually the champion comes out good in the end.
Andy Ruiz Jr. had other plans, and he too shook up the entire heavyweight landscape with an incredible upset performance this past weekend.
And football fans too love to see the end of the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl champions are the Giants, and the final score, Giants 39, the Broncos are 20.
These two great sports of boxing and football need to continue in some way, but we really have to be careful and realise that the facts are there. Concussion, CTE, brain injuries are there, and we have to be extremely careful and vigilant and know that we too need to look after people right now and in the future. So I've asked others what they think. Of course, that's the outcome. So whatever you think, please subscribe if you can, and I'll produce more videos just like this. Until next time though, have a wonderful day.